everyone, welcome to my channel. My name is Rita from Crossbody Made, and in today's tutorial I will be showing you how to sew up my pattern, the Asha Crossbody. If you have been searching for a crossbody with lots of pockets to keep all your things organized, then the Asha Crossbody is the perfect bag for you. In the front, you have a zipper pocket, also a slip pocket with snap. At the back, you have two slip pockets with this nice stitching and rivet detail. There's a top zipper closure, and inside there's another zipper pocket, and on the other side you have full slip pockets. The slanted slip pockets are folded to give you full separate sections. There are D-ring connectors, D-ring, and your crossbody stripe. Some of the fun features of this crossbody are the bottom accents here, and then the piping at the front and the back. And guys, I am so excited to show you a new technique in adding piping that's going to give you consistent results on your fold and matching up of your piping on both sides. Timestamps are in the description below. So if you want to skip to any step in this process, just click on that link and it will take you directly to that step. Okay, are you ready? Let's get started. In this section, we will be working on fusing and prep. For the front and back exterior pieces, along with the side gussets, we want to add the stabilizer to the wrong side, 3/8 of an inch away from the top raw edges and centering from the sides. For the base, the stabilizer is added to the wrong side, 3/8 of an inch away from one of the short raw edges and center from the sides. I will be using adhesive foam as my main stabilizer. And even though we will be using the birth method for this bag, I have not had any issues with peeling of the stabilizer when I turn my bag. Another option for stabilizer, if you do not want to use adhesive foam, is to use Dig-A-Bit Light. Okay, I will be using cotton for these exterior pieces, my front and back, along with the base and side gussets. And because of that, on the back, before I fuse my stabilizer, like the adhesive foam stabilizer, I fuse woven interface into all the pieces. So woven interface into all the core cotton pieces for my exterior prior to adding the stabilizer. Now for the lining, if you are using cotton also, you want to fuse all your pieces with woven interfacing except one of the right slanted slip pocket and one of the left slanted slip pocket. To prep your zipper overlay, you want to fuse the Dig-A-Bit Light on the wrong side, aligning at the bottom edge and centering from the sides. Afterwards, you want to lay the pattern piece, the paper pattern piece on top, draw out your zipper box, and cut it out using a rotary cutter or your scissors. At this point, you can edge coat the zipper cutout and the bottom edge. To prep your D-ring connectors, first you want to cut two pieces of your exterior 4 by 2.5 inches. And then you want to cut one piece of Dig-A-Bit Light 4 by 2.5 inches. And then on the back of one of your exterior piece, you want to fuse Dig-A-Bit Light to that piece. Afterwards, you want to use either a glue or a double-sided tape, and then place these two pieces wrong sides together. Now, if you're using glue to put your two pieces together, I recommend you putting it aside, adding something heavy on top just to let it dry first before cutting out your connectors. All right, so what you want to do next is to place your paper pattern piece on top, trace out the connectors, transfer your rivet hole, and then using either a scissors or a rotary cutter, you want to cut out your connectors. In this section, we will be working on the D-ring connectors and the crossbody stripe. For this section, you will need the two D-ring connectors, and if you are edge painting around the raw edges, you will need your biscoat and your edge paint. The crossbody stripe, the cross grain ribbon that will be used as a stabilizer for the stripe, two swivel hooks, and two sets of rivets. To complete your D-ring connectors, you want to take both pieces to the machine and top stitch all around the raw edges at a 1/8 seam allowance, and then afterwards you want to punch out your rivet holes. Top stitching is done and I have punched the holes for my rivets. Next step is to edge paint all around the raw edges of our connectors. I will be using this as my base coat, this as my edge painting, and I also have a sandpaper here that I will use to sand the edges down during the application of the base coat, and a roller. First, I will apply a layer of base coat. Nothing too thick, just a thin layer. Set it aside, let it dry. Afterwards, I'll use the sandpaper to sand the edges down just to make them smooth. Apply a second layer of base coat, let it dry, and then apply a third layer of base coat. Once that's done, I would then apply a layer of edge paint, let it dry, and then do a second layer of edge paint. To complete the crossbody stripe, we want to draw a line down the center on the wrong side and then add double-sided tape over that center line. Next, we want to add double-sided tape along one of the long raw edges. And then remove the backing from this double-sided tape on the long raw edge and add your cross grain ribbon. Afterwards, remove the backing from the center double-sided tape and then fold both long edges to just shy of the center line you drew earlier. At this point, you want to fold both long edges together, and you can use either double-sided tape or clip to hold in place. Take to the machine and you want to top stitch at a 1/8 seam allowance along both long edges. With top stitching done, we want to mark lines on the wrong side of our crossbody stripe. The first line will be 1/4 inch away from the short raw edges, and then the second line will be 2 1/4 inches away from the short raw edges. Take this to your rivet press and punch a hole in the center of that first 1/4 inch line. After punching the first rivet holes, you want to now fold your short raw edges to that 2 1/4 inch line you drew, and then transfer your rivet hole and then punch the holes. Our next step is to add your swivel hooks and set your rivets. I'm so sorry, I forgot to mention this earlier. If you are going to edge paint your short raw edges, you want to make sure you're doing that prior to adding your swivel hook. In this section, we will be working on the front zipper pocket. For this section, you will need one of the 8.5 inch zipper with a pull on, your zipper overlay, the lower panel, the left and right accent pieces, and your zipper pocket. Before starting, if you prefer, you can edge paint the top edges of your accent pieces. All right, so with our lower panel right side up, we want to add double-sided tape on the wrong side of our accent pieces. And one thing I do when I'm cutting my accent pieces is to add LA and RA on the back, just so I know which is which and there's no confusion later. Now we will lay these pieces right side up in the corners of the lower panel. And this is about 2 3/8 inch away from the top raw edge of our lower panel. Right, we would take this now to the machine and top stitch the accent to the lower panel at a 1/8 seam allowance along the raw edges. After adding the accent pieces to our lower panel, leave this piece right side up and then come down 3/8 inch from the top raw edge and then just place marks on the right and left hand raw edges and then add double-sided tape at that top raw edge. All right, now we want to lay our zipper overlay right side up on top of the lower panel and want to just make sure we're aligning the right and left hand side edges of the zipper overlay to those placement marks. Now we want to take this to the machine and top stitch the zipper overlay to the lower panel at a 1/8 seam allowance just at this bottom raw edge. Okay, we are done top stitching the zipper overlay to our lower panel. Now, the video that you're about to watch is a tutorial that I filmed when I released the free collection of my zipper overlay. The steps are the same, so just follow along as you complete your front zipper pockets. Grab your zipper and you will place this right side up and add double-sided tape at those long raw edges. Then you want to place your main fabric on top of your zipper, wrong side down, making sure to center your zipper within that zipper window. So leave your piece wrong side up and then add double-sided tape at that bottom long edge of your zipper. Then grab your zipper pocket and you will place this wrong side up, aligning one of the short raw edges to the bottom edge of your zipper tape, making sure the longer edge of your zipper pocket is facing upwards so it will cover the entire zipper as you place this down. Now you want to turn this to the right side, take to your machine, and top stitch at a 1/8 seam allowance away from that lower end of your zipper cutout. You want to start 1/8 of an inch from where your zipper closes and end 1/8 of an inch to where your zipper ends. Again, do not backstitch. You want to leave long tails, pull to the back, and tie those off. Top stitching is done, and I have pulled my threads to the back and tie those off. Next, you want to add double-sided tape right below that stitch line. Then you want to grab the other short edge of your zipper pocket, pull down, and finger press at that fold. What this double-sided tape does is to stick your zipper pocket down. Because we did not top stitch through the zipper pocket, that tape, that double-sided tape, will prevent your zipper pocket from pulling up and being cut in your zipper. Then you want to add double-sided tape at that top long edge of your zipper, and then bring the other end of your zipper pocket up and align to that long edge of your zipper. Now flip this to the right side and take back to your machine. You want to top stitch at a 1/8 seam allowance along the other three sides of your zipper cutout. You want to start in that last stitch, pull your needle down, top stitch up, stop pivot, top stitch across, stop pivot, and end in that first stitch. Again, do not back stitch, leave long tails to pull to the back and tie those off. Top stitching is done, and I have pulled my threads to the back and tie those off. Last thing to do is to sew down the sides of your zipper pocket to close it. So pull your fabric away from the zipper pocket and sew down. Afterwards, you trim your seam allowance of the zipper pocket. All right, we are back to the Asha video, and here is your front zipper pocket all done. In this section, we will be working on the front slip pocket. For this section, you will need the front zipper pocket, the front slip pocket, the front exterior, and a set of magnetic snaps. On the wrong side of your front zipper pocket, you want to draw a line 3/4 of an inch away from the top raw edge, add a piece of double-sided tape at that top raw edge, and fold to the line you drew. You want to do the same for the front slip pocket, but before folding the edge to the line, you want to make sure you've transferred the mark for the snaps. Next, we want to place both pieces wrong sides together, align the top folded edges, clip the hole in place, take to the machine and top stitch at a 1/8 seam allowance from the top edge. With top stitching done, we want to go ahead and install the middle portion of the snap. So on the back, we will center the washer over that mark, transfer the prong holes, and make snips for the prongs. And we just want to do the same, make snips for the prong on a small piece of thick heavy just to use as stabilizer. And then install the snap. And then I just like to add a piece of duct tape over my snap to protect my fabric. With the male portion of our snap installed, we want to now install the female portion. So grab your front exterior and you will leave this piece right side up, and then place your front pocket piece on top, right side up, match the centers at the bottom here, clip the hole in place, and just make sure as you're clipping the hole in place that the distance from the top of your front exterior here to the top of this piece, they're about the same on both sides, because you do not want your piece lopsided when you're done. Next, you want to pull back the top of the front pocket piece. And then using something like a chalk or the Tandy leather silver pen, you just want to mark the point of the mill magnetic snap. So just you're marking that top point. And the goal here is that when we push this piece down on the front exterior, that we'll transfer this mark to the front exterior and use that as a guide to install the female portion of our snap. All right, now we're going to push this down and then just press at that snap. So either leave the mark or leave an indent. And then pull it back up. And here's the mark. I don't know if you can see that, but it left that mark on the front exterior. And so we're going to use this to install the female portion. All right, you want to now remove your front pocket piece. Just wipe that off and then install the female portion of your snap to the front exterior. All right, we're done installing the female portion of our snap. Next is just to snap the front pocket piece on top, match up the centers at the bottom here, again making sure the distance here is about the same on both sides. And then clip the hole in place, stick to your machine, and you want to baste in place at a 1/8 seam allowance. In this section, we will be working on the back slip pocket. For this section, you will need the exterior back slip pocket, the interior back slip pocket, the back exterior, and a set of rivets. First, we want to lay both the exterior and interior back slip pocket pieces right sides together, align the top raw edges, clip the hole in place, take to the machine, and sew at a 3/8 seam allowance away from the top raw edge. So what I like to do prior to going to my machine is to mark the seam allowance at the center here so I know exactly where to step with my needle down when I'm sewing at the center mark. Once we're done sewing these two pieces together, we want to make little snips into the seam allowance, being careful not to cut through any of our stitches. Now we want to lay both pieces wrong sides together, finger press at the folds, and clip to hole in place. All right, we want to take this back to the machine to top stitch. First, we will be top stitching 1/8 seam allowance away from the top edge, and then do another top stitching 3/8 of an inch away from the top edge. Again, before I go to top stitch, I will find my center here and mark it so I know where to stop with my needle down. With top stitching done, we want to now draw a line down the center and then two other lines that are 1/8 of an inch away from both sides of the center line. And as you're drawing your line, make sure you are not starting at the top folded edge. You want to start at the stitches here from the top. And you are using a marking pen that is erasable because you do not want those marks to be visible on your finished project. At this point, you want to grab your back exterior piece and lay this right side up, and then place the back slip pocket on top, right side up, match up the centers at the bottom, align your edges, and clip the hole in place. And as you're doing so, again, you just want to make sure the distance here from the top of your back exterior to the top of your pocket piece, they're about the same on both sides. After clipping our pieces together, we want to take this to the machine and top stitch, following the 1/8 of an inch lines we drew from both sides of the center line. Again, do not start stitching from the top folded edge. You want to start or stop at the top stitches here. And if you want a cleaner look, instead of back stitching, you can leave long tails to put to the back and tie off. After top stitching, you can, at this point, if you prefer, set a rivet in that box that was created from the top stitching and then baste or around at the 1/8 seam allowance. In this section, we will be working on adding a piping to the front and back exterior pieces. For this section, you will need your piping cords, the assembled front exterior, the assembled back exterior, and your piping strips. First, we're going to work on adding the piping to the front exterior. So grab that piping strip and you want to just fold this in half lengthwise, aligning the long raw edges, and then add a small line here to mark the center. So you just want to do that on both short edges. Afterwards, with your piping strip wrong side up, from the left hand side short raw edge, you want to measure down 1/8 of an inch away from that short raw edge and draw a line. Now you want to add double-sided tape down the center, starting from this left hand side short raw edge, and then you want to end about 2 inches away from the right hand side short raw edge. You want to use your larger width double-sided tape. I'm using a 1/2 inch double-sided tape to place down the center. What we want to do now is to add another smaller size, a width size double-sided tape at this end. And it doesn't matter which long raw edge you add your double-sided tape, you can pick either one. But you just want to start from where your 1/2 inch width size double-sided tape ended and then just go to the end here. So you want to use a double-sided tape that is 1/4 of an inch or 1/8 of an inch in width. The reason I have the double-sided tape added this way is because at this end, we will be trimming the cord later. And this just prevents the cord from sticking to the double-sided tape in the center here, and it makes it easier to trim. So now you want to place your piping cord down the center, starting from that 1/8 of an inch line you drew earlier. So you'll just lay this down the center all the way to the end. At this point, you want to fold your piping strip in half, wrong sides together, aligning the long raw edges. Afterwards, you want to use a seam roller or something similar and just roll along the cord to create a crease. All right, so you want to leave your piping like this and then come down from this left hand side short raw edge. You want to come down and measure 1/8 of an inch. Remember, this edge was the edge we measured the first 1/8 of an inch on the wrong side of our piping strip. So that's the same edge. We're going to measure 1/8 of an inch and place a mark. You want to place your mark at that long raw edge, not the folded edge, the long raw edge. All right, so now we want to make little snips at an angle on both sides of the line to form a triangle. Be careful as you're making your snips. You do not want to make your snips greater than your seam allowance. Your seam allowance is 3/8 of an inch. Be mindful of that as you make your snips. All right, put this aside for now and then grab your front exterior piece, lay this piece right side up, and then we want to measure down from the top raw edge 1/8 of an inch down. And we just want to place marks on both ends here, the right hand side and the left hand side. Now we want to add double-sided tape along the edges, starting at that 1/8 of an inch mark and ending at the other mark. Now we want to lay our piping strip on top, aligning the short raw edge to the top raw edge of our front piece. Then just making sure the edge with the triangle cut out is the one we're laying down. And we want to align the long raw edges of our piping strip to the edges of our front piece. And as you come down to the corners, you want to make little snips into your piping strip to ease it to your front piece. Remember your seam allowance of 3/8 of an inch. You do not want to cut that too deep into your strip. And I'm just going to add some clips here, so hold those in place. And as you come to this left-hand side edge, you just want to trim your piping strip here so it's even with the top of your front piece. After trimming down your piping strip, you want to measure down 1/8 of an inch and place a mark on the piping strip, same as you did for this other side. All right, so at this time, you want to pull apart the strip at this end and trim your cord inside. So you trim your cord at that 1/8 of an inch line we marked, okay? And this is why we added a double-sided tape the way we did earlier, because now your cord is very easy to pull apart. And we will just trim at that mark. Be careful you do not cut your strip at this point. All right, so now that we're done with that, we want to make the triangle like we did over here. So make little snips on both sides of that mark. Again, be mindful of your seam allowance. All right, now you just stick this back down, and then I'm gonna add clip over here just to hold that in place. All right, this is how it looks at this point. Now we need to take the saw machine and baste in place at a 1/8 seam allowance. But we're starting our basting right below the triangle. So do not start at the very top. You want to start right below the triangle here, baste, and then end right below the triangle on this other side. And here is the front piece with the piping basted on. And now we want to repeat all those steps to baste the piping to the back exterior. In this section, we will be working on completing the back exterior. For this section, you will need the assemble front exterior, the assemble back exterior, the side gussets, and the base. First, we want to mark lines on the wrong side of the front and back exterior pieces along with the side gussets. You want to come down 1/8 of an inch from the top raw edges. You just want to place marks on the right and left hand side edges. Place one of the side gussets right sides together with the base. Align the short raw edges, clip to hold in place, and sew at a 3/8 seam allowance. Next, you want to finger press your seam towards the base, and then on the right side, take this to your machine and top stitch at a 1/8 seam allowance from that folded edge. Then you want to add the other side gusset to your base piece following the same steps. After adding your side gussets to your base piece, you want to fold your piece in half and then just align the short raw edges here at the top, and then mark the centers on the top and bottom of the exterior gusset. At this time, we want to add the exterior gusset to our front exterior. But before we start, if you haven't done so already, you want to transfer the center mark to the piping. Then we want to clip the exterior gussets to the front exterior right sides together. Match up the center on the bottom of your front exterior to the center of your gusset. Align the top edges. And then if you need to, make little snips into the exterior gusset to ease into place. Remember, your seam allowance 3/8 of an inch, so do not make your snips larger than that. Even though I'm using clips, I will also be using double-sided tape because I do not want any shifting as I go to sew. Now, if you will be using double-sided tape also, you want to make sure to start your double-sided tape below the triangles. You do not want to start at the top. So place your double-sided tape below these two triangles. All right, guys. So the technique I'm about to show you for the piping is inspired by the Butler method, which is a method for adding zipper to end and bag that was developed by Amy Lane's Designs. I will be linking Amy's video in the description, so go check it out if you haven't come across her method yet. It is fantastic. So anyways, one day I'm lying there thinking about the Asha pattern and how I was still finding it difficult to get consistent fold and matching up of the piping when it hit me, the Butler method. Like, could it also work for piping? So of course, I got out of bed, raced downstairs to my sewing room to test it out, and yes, it does work. Now, one of my testers did mention that this piping technique have been used in some French designs, but I personally haven't come across it in any of the English bed patterns with piping yet, so I'm super excited to show it to y'all and to hear what you think. Okay, enough talking, let's get on with it. All right, now it's time to sew the gusset to our front exterior. If you are not going to be using a piping foot, it might be helpful to draw your seam allowance to 3/8 seam allowance all around the gusset. All right, so this is what's going to happen at the machine. We want to sew with the wrong side of the front exterior against the bed of the machine. Then we want to start sewing 3 inches down from this top raw edge. We're going to start 3 inches down, sew all around. And as we come to this other side, we want to stop with our needle down in that 1/1/8 of an inch mark we made earlier. Do you remember that? The marks we made on the gusset on the front and back exterior pieces, that 1/1/8 of an inch mark is where we want to stop with our needle down. We'll then lift the presser foot, and then using either your finger, or I find it helpful to use the hemostat, we would then pull the piping from between these two pieces, the gusset and the front exterior, and we just pull this to the right at an angle, like a 90-degree angle. Again, needle down, presser foot up. Then we're going to put the presser foot down, again, having this piping to the side, to this right side, and then keep sewing. Okay? All right. So then once that's done, I will come back and I'll show you how to do the second part of the gusset to the front exterior. I'll show this to you at the machine again. And I will also be using this piping foot. I got this from Q-Tex Sewing Supplies, and the size is 3/16. You have this piece that glides right next to the piping cord, and then this piece sits and it just kind of hooks the piping cord at the back. So it goes like this and just glides over here and hooks it at the back. All right, so here we are at the machine. The wrong side of my front exterior is facing the bed of my machine, and I am starting to sew 3 inches down from this top raw edge. And as you can see, I have my piping foot on. All right, we are coming closer to that 1/1/8 of an inch mark right here. Now I will hand crank until I hit that mark. Okay, as you can see, my needle is down in that 1/1/8 of an inch mark. My presser foot is up. I will then pull my piping from between these two pieces and then bring to the right at a 90-degree angle. Put my presser foot down and keep sewing. All right, guys, we are done sewing 3 inches down from this top edge. We started here 3 inches down, sew all the way around, and then stop with our needle down here, pull the piping at that angle, and finish sewing. This is how it looks inside. And then just look at your piping, make sure you're satisfied with how it looks. If not, you can go back to your machine and just sew those parts that are not the way you want them. All right, so next is to finish sewing the gusset to the front exterior, because remember we started 3 inches down, so we still need to sew this part of the gusset to the front exterior. When we take this to the machine, we want to flip our piece so that the gusset is against the bed of the machine so that we can sew the side. It's probably going to be weird sewing with the gusset down, but with the piping foot, this is the only way I could get it to work perfectly, because I need this side of my foot to hug my piping while this one glides right next to the cord. All right, so now to sew, we want to start 3 to 4 stitches down from that prior stitches. Remember the stitches we made 3 inches down to sew all around? We want to start sewing 3 to 4 stitches down from that to kind of lock those stitches in. Keep sewing until we get to that 1/1/8 of an inch mark. Stop with the needle down, lift our presser foot, and then pull the piping between those two pieces to the right at that right angle, and then keep sewing, same as we did on the other side. All right, I'm at my machine. My gusset is against my machine bed, and I'm going to start sewing about 3 to 4 stitches down from my prior stitches. All right, I'm coming closer to that 1/1/8 of an inch mark. I'm going to hand crank. All right, stop right in that 1/1/8 of an inch mark. My needle down. Lift my presser foot, and then I'm going to use my hemostat again. Grab the piping, pull to the right at a 90-degree angle, place my presser foot back down, and keep sewing. And we are done adding a gusset to the front exterior. So look your piece over, make sure your piping looks good. Next, we want to clip the back exterior to the gusset right sides together. You want to make sure you have transferred your center mark from the back exterior to your piping. I will be using double-sided tape again, and I will be starting and stopping my double-sided tape below the triangles. Now we want to take this to the machine and sew the back exterior to the gusset. Again, if you are not using piping full, it might be helpful to draw out your 3/8 seam allowance around the gusset. At the machine, we will be following the same technique for the piping as we did for the front exterior. But we will be starting with the wrong side of the back exterior against the bed of the machine. So your bag will be placed like this when you start to sew. Again, 3 inches down from this top edge, sew all around. And as you come over here, stop with the needle down, press the fold up, pull your piping from between the two pieces at the right at that 90-degree angle. Keep sewing. Once that is done, you want to flip your piece so that the gusset will be now against your machine bed. And this will be a little trickier to do because you're dealing with all of this. But you just want to hold your piece like this. So this gusset now is against the bed of your machine. Start sewing 3 to 4 stitches down from your prior stitches all the way. Stop at that 1/8 of an inch mark, needle down, press the fold up, pull your piping to the right 90 degrees, and keep sewing. And I'll show you this at the machine. Right. At the machine, the wrong side of my back exterior is against my machine bed, and I will start sewing 3 inches down from this top edge. All right, again, here is the 1/8 of an inch mark. I'm coming closer to that. I will start hand cranking so my needle is right down in that mark. And then press the foot up, grab the piping, pull to the right, 90-degree angle, and keep sewing. Now we need to do the other side. So here is my gusset against the bed of my machine. I'm going to start about 3 to 4 stitches away from my prior stitches there. All right, getting closer to the mark. I will hand crank right at that mark. Press the foot up, pull my piping to the right, 90-degree, and keep sewing. And we're done adding the back exterior to the gusset. Now we just want to trim off the piping strips that are poking out here so that they're even with the seam allowance. At this time, we will add pieces of double-sided tape to all the top seam allowances and fold them open. Then you can trim the seam allowances below those folded edges and then just leave your exterior piece wrong side out for now. But if you like and you just want to check out your piping and make sure your bag looks good, you can turn it right side out, look it over, and then turn it back wrong side out. I personally don't like messing with my bag. I don't want to turn it in and turn it back out. I leave it wrong side out and then turn it when the bag is all done. In this section, we will be working on the interior zipper pocket. For this section, you will need one of the interior linings, the remaining zipper pocket, and the remaining 8.5 inch zipper with the pull attached. On the back of the interior lining, you want to trace and cut out your cut lines. Afterwards, you want to draw lines that are 1/2 inch from both sides of this long cut. Add double-sided tape below those lines and behind your triangle. And then we will be folding the long edges to the line we drew and also folding open the triangle. At this point, you can add frit checks to the corners if you prefer. Once again, the video you're about to watch is the one that I recorded when I released the collection of my zipper overlay. Everything is the same except for the very last step. We will not be closing the zipper pocket on the Asha Crossbody. So just follow along until that very last step. We will come back to the Asha video and I will show you how to finish the zipper pockets. Grab your zipper and you'll place this right side up and add double-sided tape at those long raw edges. Then you want to place your main fabric on top of your zipper, wrong side down, making sure to center your zipper within that zipper window. So leave your piece wrong side up and then add double-sided tape at that bottom long edge of your zipper. Then grab your zipper pocket and you will place this wrong side up, aligning one of the short raw edges to that bottom edge of your zipper tape, making sure the longer edge of your zipper pocket is facing upwards so it will cover the entire zipper as you place this down. Now you want to turn this to the right side, take to your machine, and top stitch at a 1/8 seam allowance away from that lower end of your zipper cutout. You want to start 1/8 of an inch from where your zipper closes and end 1/8 of an inch to where your zipper ends. Again, do not backstitch. You want to leave long tails, pull to the back, and tie those off. Top stitching is done, and I have pulled my threads to the back and tie those off. Next, you want to add double-sided tape right below that stitch line. Then you want to grab the other short edge of your zipper pocket, pull down, and finger press at that fold. What this double-sided tape does is to stick your zipper pocket down. Because we did not top stitch through the zipper pocket, that tape, that double-sided tape, will prevent your zipper pocket from pulling up and being caught in your zipper. Then you want to add double-sided tape at that top long edge of your zipper, and then bring the other end of your zipper pocket up and align to that long edge of your zipper. Now flip this to the right side and take back to your machine. You want to top stitch at a 1/8 seam allowance along the other 3 sides of your zipper cutout. You want to start in that last stitch, pull your needle down, top stitch up, stop pivot, top stitch across, stop pivot, and end in that first stitch. Again, do not back stitch, leave long tails to pull to the back and tie those off. Okay, we are back to the Asha video, and this is where we're at. Just got done sewing the other 3 sides of the zipper cutout and pull our threads to the back to tie those off. At this point, we want to leave our piece wrong side up and use scissors to cut the bottom here of the zipper pocket so that it is separated. Next, we want to turn to the right side and then pull the lining out of the way. And when we get to the machine, this is what we want to do. We want to sew down the pocket at a 3/8 or 1/2 inch seam allowance, sew all the way down, and then we want to stop 1/2 inch from the bottom of our zipper pocket, pivot, sew about 1 inch in, stop, pivot, and sew down. Okay, so start from the top, come down and stop 1/2 inch from the bottom, stop, pivot, sew in about 1 inch, stop, pivot, and sew down. And we just want to repeat the same steps for this other side of the zipper pocket. Now you want to trim your pocket seam allowance along with the corners here to reduce bulk, but do not trim the pocket opening here at the bottom. Now you want to turn your piece to the right side and place a mark at the top edge, 5/8 of an inch in from this right-hand side raw edge. In this section, we will be working on the slanted slip pockets. For this section, you will need the right and left slanted slip pocket and the remaining interior lining. And just remember during the fusing and prep video that one of the right and one of the left pocket pieces will not have woven interfacing. So for this one, no interfacing, and this one has the interfacing. And then for the left one, no interfacing, and then this one has interfacing. All right, so at this point, we will be working on the right slanted slip pocket first. So grab those 2 pieces and you'll place them right sides together, aligning at the top raw edges here, clip to hold in place, stick to your machine, and you want to sew at a 3/8 seam allowance from the top raw edge. With top stitching done, you want to fold both pieces wrong sides together, finger press at the fold, clip to hold in place, stick to your machine. You want to top stitch at a 1/8 seam allowance from that folded edge. And then just baste your sides and bottom at a 1/8 seam allowance also. With top stitching done, you want to fold your piece in half, right sides together, align the bottom and corner edges. And then at the fold here, you can either finger press or use an iron in order to create a crease at the center. After creating your crease down the center here, you want to unfold your piece and then draw 2 lines using an erasable pen. The first line would be down the center following that crease that was formed. And then the second line would be 1/8 of an inch to the left of that center line. Now lay your interior lining right side up and then place your pocket piece on top, right side up. Match up the centers at the bottom, align the edges, and clip to hold in place. Next, we want to take this to the machine and sew following that 1/8 of an inch line we drew. And then afterwards, just erase your markings. Once again, you want to fold your pocket piece in half, align the bottom and side edges, clip to hold in place, stick to your machine, and you want to top stitch at a 1/8 seam allowance away from this folded edge, and then just baste your pocket to your lining in place at a 1/8 seam allowance. And as you can see, both sides of your slanted slip pocket will be visible in your finished bag. So be mindful of this when you're cutting your slanted slip pocket pieces. So once this is done, we want to now add the left slanted slip pocket to our lining. So to do that, first, we want to sew these 2 pieces together and top stitch, right? So we'll put these 2 pieces right sides together, and then sew 3/8 of an inch from the top raw edge. Once that's done, we will flip it left sides together, finger press at the folded edge, and then top stitch at a 1/8 seam allowance. And then come back, and then I will show you how to add it to our lining piece. Now we want to fold our piece in half, right sides together, aligning the bottom and corner edges, and then just iron or finger press at the fold to create a crease at the center. Now you want to fold your piece and draw 2 lines, one in the center, following that center crease that was formed, and then the other, you want to draw 1/8 of an inch to the right of that center line. Then place your lining piece right side up and lay your pocket piece on top, right side up. Match up the centers at the bottom, align your edges, and clip to hold in place. All right, you want to now take this to your machine and sew following that 1/8 of an inch line. And it might be helpful to use either a zipper fold or a narrow presser fold. All right, at this point, we want to fold our pocket piece again in half, aligning the bottom and corner edges. Take to the machine and top stitch at a 1/8 seam allowance from that folded edge, and then just baste our pocket in place at a 1/8 seam allowance to the lining piece. All right, we're done adding the slanted slip pocket to our lining piece. The last step is to just leave this piece right side up. And then we want to place a mark at the top left hand raw edge here. We want to come in 5/8 of an inch and then just place a mark right at the top. In this section, we will be working on completing the bag interior. For this section, you will need the interior lining with the zipper pocket, the interior lining with the slanted slip pockets, your interior gusset, and your 14-inch zipper with the pull attached. First, you want to fold your gusset in half, aligning these short raw edges, and just mark the centers at the top and the bottom here. Next, you want to clip your gusset to the lining that has the slip pockets. Match up the centers on the bottom of your lining to the center on your gusset, and you're placing these 2 pieces right sides together. You will clip all around, match up the top here, snip into the gusset at the corners to ease into place. Remember your seam allowance, 3/8 of an inch. Do not snip into that seam allowance. You're just going to clip all around to hold in place. After clipping our gusset to the lining, we want to take this to the machine and sew the gusset to the lining at a 3/8 seam allowance. Next, we want to sew the lining with the zipper pocket to our gusset. So we'll clip around like we did on the other side and take our machine to sew. But we are not going to sew all the way around like we did for the other side. We will be leaving a 6-inch turning hole at the bottom. So do not sew all the way around. Make sure you're leaving a 6-inch turning hole at the bottom. And just make sure you're back stitching really well at the opening here, because there's going to be stress placed on the stitches as you're turning your bag. At this time, we want to add pieces of double-sided tape to all the top seam allowances. We will fold those seam allowances open, and then if you like, you can trim your seam allowances, but do not trim at the bottom opening here. Leave your piece wrong side out and set aside for now. Then place your zipper right side up and then mark lines 3/4 of an inch in from this short end where the zipper will close. You want to pinch at the marks, turn your zipper at an angle, and either use a pin or sew to hold in place. At the end here, you just want to sew across the zipper teeth to prevent your pull from falling off. Zip your zipper to make sure everything looks good, and then an extra zipper tip that's poking out on the sides, you just want to trim those off so that the zipper is even. At this point, you want to grab your interior lining and just position it so that the zipper pocket is at the back. What you want to do now is to add double-sided tape starting at that left-hand side gusset seam, and you want to end at that mark we placed earlier. Remember the mark we placed when we did the zipper pocket at the very end? That mark is where you want to end your double-sided tape. Then you want to lay your zipper right side up, aligning that angle end to the gusset seam on the left, aligning your top edges, and then you just want to make sure to transfer that mark to the zipper. Then you want to take this to your machine and baste your zipper in place at a 1/4 inch seam allowance, starting at that ankle end and ending at that mark you place. Next, we want to position this so that the lining with the slip pockets is at the back. Then we want to add double-sided tape. This time, we will start the double-sided tape from this gusset seam on the right side, and we'll place it and end at the mark on the left side, okay? So we're starting from this gusset seam here on the right-hand side, and we're ending at that mark we placed earlier when we completed the slanted slip pockets. Now we want to place this unattached zipper right side up, aligning the ankle end to that gusset seam on the right-hand side, aligning the top edges, and then transferring the mark to the zipper. Again, we will take this to the machine and baste the zipper in place at a 1/4 inch seam allowance. I find it easier to start at the mark and end at the angle end, but if you find it easier to start at the angle end and then end at the mark, go ahead and do that. Once you're done basting the zipper, you want to turn your interior right side out and make sure to poke out the corners. Next step is to fold down the tail end of the zipper and just use tape to hold it in place on the side of the lining. All right, guys, it is time to finish this bag. So for this section, you will need the completed exterior and its wrong side out, the completed interior, right side out, your 2 D-ring connectors, your 2 D-rings, zipper end, and 4 sets of rivets. Now we want to place the lining into the exterior, and these 2 pieces will be right sides together. We want to match up the centers and the gusset seam and make sure the end of our zipper tail here is still pushed down and out of the way. We want to line the edges and clip to hold in place. As I'm placing my interior in, I like the zipper pocket on the interior to face the back of my exterior. And even though I will be using clips to hold in place, I also like to use double-sided tape just to make sure my pieces don't shift. After clipping all around, we want to take this to the machine and sew at a 1/4 inch seam allowance away from the top raw edge. I like to sew with the wrong side of my exterior against the bed of my machine. That way I can follow the 1/4 inch basting stitch that's on the interior. Another thing, sometimes if you're not precise with that 1/4 inch seam allowance, your basting stitch might show on the exterior when the bag is turned. That's not a big deal because you can just snip those off since they're basting stitches. But if that's going to be a concern, what you can do is to sew right next to the basting stitch. So not directly on there, you just sew right next to it, and that should prevent your stitches from showing, the basting stitches from showing on the exterior when the bag is done. We are done sewing all around our piece at our 1/4 inch seam allowance. Now the fun part, we get to turn our bag inside out. So we will reach into the bag, that opening we left in the lining, and pull the exterior right side out, making sure to poke out the corners. Before I turn my bag right side out, what I want to do now is just roll over my adhesive foam one more time because I've been pushing and squishing. I just want to make sure it sticks to the fabric before trying to turn my bag right side out. All right, so that was a bit of a workout. So now the next step is to push the lining back into the bag. And then you just want to use your fingers and roll the seams at the top. And then use a keyhole ply or something similar just to flatten the buck in your seam. You zip the zipper, make sure everything looks good. Clip to hold in place, clip around the bag to hold in place. You would take this back to your machine and you would top stitch all around the bag at a 1 inch seam allowance. And as you're top stitching, one thing you want to be careful of is your interior zipper pocket, the pull for the interior zipper pocket. You just want to make sure you know it's out of the way as you're top stitching. After top stitching, we want to pull the lining through the opening we left in the zipper pocket and then have the lining right sides together, clip, take to the machine, and sew the lining close at a 3 inch seam allowance. After sewing your lining close, you want to push your lining through the pocket opening back into the bag and just make sure to push out your corners because we're about to close the hole in the pocket. All right, now you want to reach in and pull the zipper pocket out, fold the edges in, clip to hold in place, and you take this to your machine and sew your pocket close at a 1 inch seam allowance. Once you're done sewing the pocket closed, you want to push it back into the bag. At this time, we want to add the connectors to the bag. We have the D-ring connectors and the D-ring. Next, we want to thread one of the D-ring connectors onto the D-ring, making sure the D-ring connector is left side together. Then we will wrap this on one side of the gusset here at the very top. And just making sure we're centering it from both sides of the gusset here. Look at the D-ring, and you just want to make sure the distance from the bottom of the D-ring to the top of your gusset is to your satisfaction. Pretty much how much space you want between the D-ring and the top of your gusset. I'm just going to clip this to hold in place. And then move it around until I'm satisfied with how it looks. All right, so that looks good. Next step is to just transfer the rivet hole to the gusset. Then you want to leave the connector in place and just mark down here at the bottom. Just draw a line down the bottom. You want to use a pen that is erasable. And this mark is just to guide us to where we need to place the second connector on the other side. So we will measure the distance from the top of our gusset to that mark, and then use that distance to measure on this other side of the gusset to place our connector. All right, with the connector off, I'm just going to measure the distance. And for me, it's about 1.5 inches. All right, so now it's the time to punch the holes for our rivets. One thing that's very important is to make sure both the exterior and interior gussets are very flat. You want them pulled flat and taut as you punch your holes because you do not want bunching. Okay, I am done punching the holes for my rivets through both the exterior and the lining. Next step is just to rewrap your connectors and set your rivets. And we are done adding the first connector. So we just want to follow the same steps to add the second connector to the side of the gusset. Remember your distance, the measurement, you want to use that as you place the connector. All right, guys, we're almost done. We have just added the two connectors, and the last step is to add the zipper end. So close your zipper, make sure everything still looks great, and then just trim the zipper tail down 1.5 to 2 inches. I usually just eyeball it and trim whatever I like. And then you will add the zipper end. For extra security, you can add some glue in the zipper end prior to adding it to your zipper tail. And we are done sewing the Asha Crossbody. Thank you so much for hanging out with me. I hope you had a blast. Please comment below if you have any questions or concerns, or you can shoot me an email anytime.